Yeah, this program.
Is it already to go?
Okay, we're ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody.
Make it louder.
I'm glad to see everybody here. The idea for this program came about when Connie Hornbeck's grandson, who runs the eBay store in New Paltz, got a Bandura in. And Cynthia Lee went over and asked to borrow it, and she borrowed it and brought it here a couple weeks ago. And it's a very fascinating instrument. So I thought, gee, wouldn't it be nice if we could have a show for the Bandura and other unusual instruments? Because I have a bowed psalter, I have a zither, Connie has a didgeridoo. So we're going to start with Cynthia because her borrowing the Bandura was the one that got this whole idea started. So Cynthia, you are on.
Thank you, thank you. This is a Ukrainian plucked string folk instrument, and it has 56 strings, and it's made in the USSR, according to the little writing there, in the 1970s. It has about 10 bass strings. It's out of tune, and it's and about 50 treble. In 1700, banduras had 5 to 12 strings total, and similar to a lute. Until the 1940s, it was called a kobza, K-O-B-Z-A. So the player was called a kobzar, and was often blind. The term bandura dates to Polish chronicles from 1441, which states that the Polish king Sigismund III had a court bandura player, and its primary role was to accompany the solo singing voice, including folk songs, chants, psalms, and folk dance tunes. Persecution of bandura players, or kobzars, began in 1870s under Imperial Russia. Stage performances were officially banned due to the decree that specifically aimed at preventing music performed in the Ukrainian language. As a result, blind professional musicians, such as the kobzars, turned to the street to make a living and often treated like common street beggars in major Russian-speaking cities, being arrested and having their instruments destroyed, but this ended in about 1902. Persecution was also due to religious elements in the bandura's repertoire, idealizing the Ukrainian Cossacks. It was known as the minstrel art of the itinerant blind bandura players. I can't play it, so the next best thing, well, first I want to show you how you are supposed to position it in your lap.
Tip it up so
And it's not light.
Cynthia, tip it up so the camera.
Yeah, but she's got pegs.
Wow.
And it's got pegs to hold, that you can tune right here and here. Then it's got, and I think they might be plastic or ivory, probably plastic, because some of the strings are higher than others, some are lower, and then they're anchored on the end. Supposedly this is one piece of wood, and it said in the, I'm not sure, but this is said to be a willow, but I'm not sure what it is. And they usually have designs, and this is for sale at Sal Tantillo, who is a grandson of Connie, at the consignment shop on Ohioville Road. And the lady, it's probably from the 1970s, and the lady bought it from the Ukrainian community, and she doesn't want over the mountain, and she doesn't want it anymore. Now, I have a on my iPhone that I thought I would play for you, just so you have an idea of how it sounds. But I had to turn my phone off because somebody was calling. So I got, he also has it, registered on eBay. They lowered the price $100, so now it's $550. But there's work to be done on it. Some of the places, okay. Now this. I'll talk about this other instrument and then I'll come back. This is a, I'm sorry, thank you. This is called an ocarina flute, and this was Connie Hornbeck's. And this is made of clay. It's an ancient wind musical instrument, a type of vessel flute, 4 to 12 finger holes and a mouthpiece. This one's made of clay. Others are wood, metal, bone, and glass. Dates back, not this one, but the ocarina dates back 12,000 years. And it was important in Chinese and Mesoamerican cultures in song and dance. This one has 6 holes on the front and 2 on the back. And you place your lips over the open slot on the end, and then there's a square opening here. I'll just play the scale for you.
Very good, very good.
Now, let's see if this will come up. If it doesn't, then you can always type in Bandura on your computer and YouTube, and it'll come up.
Spell it.
All right.
Is it B-A-N-D-U-R-A?
B-A-N-D-U-R-A.
All right.
Thank you.
Who would like to go next? Anybody? Okay, Flo?
Well, I guess I'm right. Here's the mic.
Howdy. What I have with me today are called steel tongue, T-O-N-G-U-E, drums. Believe it or not, they're not the kind of drum that you would think that you just kind of pound on like you see in parades and that kind of bands and that kind of thing. But it does belong to the percussion family. It's relatively new on the scene. It was invented by a guy by the name of Dennis Pavlina in 2007, so that's not that long ago. And believe it or not, his first tongue drum, which was called a Hank drum or a tank drum, in way back when. He took the, you know what a propane tank is that we use for camping? Okay, so pretend you are visualizing the 30 or 50 pound propane tank that would be on a camper. He turned it over, he took the bottom of it off, and that was what he sawed the notes in. And so that's how this all started. Let me see, there was a couple things I wanted to say. Like I said, the initial names of this was Hank drum or tank drum, but because these, how they chiseled these out, look like tongues, that's how it then got its name and became very popular, so it's always referred to now as tongue drum. The etching, that's not too heavy. Each one of those carved out tongues is a different note, and I'll just kind of play a little bit of it when Cynthia brings it back. Again, the sound of the notes comes from the slits, which look like the tongues on that one, not so much on this one, unless you have a curled tongue. You play this, 90% of the time you will see it played with your fingers and hands, but if you have arthritis, you can play it with mallets, which is easier on your fingers and hands. This one in particular is called the RAV, R-A-V, VAST, V-A-S-T, steel tongue drum. RAV VAST is the manufacturer, which is in Russia. So I got this drum, not that I wanted to do that, but I got this from Russia. And this particular tongue drum was made by a Russian engineer in 2013. So these are really relatively new on the scene, but it's beautiful. It comes in different scales. This one that I have is a D major scale, and I'll tell you why I got the D major scale in a minute. But it also comes in, I think, 16 different scales. A couple of them I just jotted down: C minor, G, A, B, E, etc., etc. And you have to listen before I decide on which one to get. You have to listen to each of those so you can decide which one you think you'll be happy with playing. There's some really subtle changes, but you can't make them out. Let's see. There's some of you might know what a hand pan is. It's very similar to this, but you see the top part has indentations in it. It's different from the tongue drum in that it's much, much heavier. The steel is cut thicker than this, and it's much more expensive. Hence, that's why I don't have a hand pan, and I have a tongue drum. Let's see. Actually, the other one starts around, I think, $1,000 and can go up to several $1,000s. This, on the other hand, is you got that, right?
No.
I'm just kidding. Ravas there's a couple of companies that make this. I think there might be one in the United States, so it's not commonly made here. Hence, I got this from Russia. And this happens to be, even though it was just brought on the market in 2013, happens to be the #1 maker of tongue drums in the world. So, let me just play a couple of notes.
How did you happen to get it?
In the mail. Well, I think Suzanne would appreciate this. The reason I got the D major, is that what you're asking? Why I got that particular scale?
Any of them.
Oh, I'll tell you why. Because several years ago, how long ago was that Thomasina Levy here? Yeah, we had a concert, if you remember, 2-3 years ago, a dulcimer concert.
Yeah.
And the gal that came, her name was Thomasina Levy, not Susan Trump. I don't think she plays the tongue drum. And she brought with her, Thomasina Levy brought with her one of these. It was a handpan drum. It wasn't the tongue drum. And I really loved the sound of it. It's very mellow. It's not loud at all. You could probably go to sleep playing it. And ever since that time, I had an urge to learn how to play it. And then one day I just decided, what the heck, why not? So I did. Now the D major, the reason I got the D major instead of some of the other F or any of the minor ones is because a lot of the music that we play with the dulcimer happens to be in the key of D, correct? So I figured, why not get the D major that we can play with the dulcimer and see how it sounds together. So now you have to understand, I just got this a couple of days ago. So you gotta give me my course doesn't start until next week. So a little after that, maybe next year. Here's Gretch. When we have one of those concerts in the 2022, you might be seeing me play this along with the dulcimers. Yeah, go with this. Now this particular tongue drum is made of titanium and it's very hard. So even though they say you can play it with your fingers, since I didn't want any broken thumbs, I decided to play it with the mallets instead. So. So this one is an Asteman tongue drum. And again, it's light, but not that light, is it, Cynthia? Yeah. This one is a lot heavier. I can lift it up, but it's not something that I would carry around or anything. So let's see what this sounds like. Now this one is a little bit easier to play with the fingers, so I'm learning how to play with my fingers as well as the mallets, just in case I have pain in my thumb or something. Okay, thank you.
So we've just seen an instrument that was invented in the year 2007. And what I'm going to talk about right now is an instrument that was invented hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of years ago. And I must say that it's nothing that a person created, but it's something that is part of an animal. I've noticed that so far all the instruments are from other countries, and this is no exception. This is from Kenya. And before I say anything directly about it, I'll tell you how it was acquired. John and I were living in Kenya for a couple months at that time, and we were, I couldn't remember exactly, but it was a village outside of Nairobi, and it was at the edge of a jungle, and there were some women who were coming through the jungle, and they were carrying goods that they were bringing to the market, and one of them was holding this. And I looked at it and fell in love. I don't know why, but it just appealed to me on so many levels. And then when she told me that it was actually an instrument, I couldn't believe it, but it is. You see there's a mouthpiece here. And let me tell you first about the animal from which it sprang. This is a kudu horn. Kudo. It's a very graceful, fast animal like a gazelle. And it was made into an instrument. There's a mouthpiece here. By whoever it was who disposed of the gazelle. And these are used as part of rituals in Africa, in Kenya certainly. And so it had a real function. The animals themselves used them too. These, of course, were on the males, and the males used them to fight with other males and to establish dominance. That's about all I have to say about the instrument, but we're going to give you a demonstration, and for that I brought along the second resident musician in the household to demonstrate the sound of the kudu horn.
Okay.
Because I can't quite do it.
This requires specialized training, of course. It's best to go to Africa to learn, how you do it.
Cynthia.
I think you need to make. That's what you want.
One last thing I'd like to say about this kind of horn is that, of course, it's an extremely ancient tradition that is used throughout the world. Many of you are familiar with the ram's horn being used as a shofar in the High Holy Days. It's absolutely the same concept.
So you may have remembered that last Christmas, on 1340, I had a euphonium and played Christmas carols for you. Unfortunately, that euphonium shrank, but it grew 2 bells. So this is a double bell euphonium, otherwise called a baritone horn. You can think of it as a tenor tuba or a bass trumpet, I guess. And the purpose of the second horn, second bell, and you can't play them both at once, is that if you need a brighter sound to call attention to a particular passage or something like that, or if you don't happen to have a trombone in your organization that has a brighter sound, then you can use this. So for example, going back to our Christmas medley. I'm in the wrong key. They're supposed to be the same pitch. And this horn, because of the size of the horn, you can't get all the notes in between. This particular instrument, I got secondhand. Actually, my dad got secondhand from a friend of his in 1955, and that friend had used it in college. So I'm guessing this was made in late 40s or something like that. But brass instruments last forever. And this is the horn that I use for Tuba Christmas, which is our annual celebration of Christmas with all the tuba players in the area playing 4-part Christmas carols. So this often plays melody because it doesn't get the bass. So double bell euphonium. Sometimes this has 3 notes that change pitch, and the one that changes the valve. Some double bell euphoniums have an additional valve that makes it go lower as well as that. And so sometimes the valve for changing the horns is done with the other hand and so on. Instrument makers are very ingenious in terms of putting things together so that you can reach it. Yes?
I used to play the French horn, and I know how much saliva can collect in those tubes. Where do you start pulling out the saliva? Draining.
Well, there's what we call a spit valve. That's what it's called. There's one there, and then these can actually be pulled out and drained that way.
And which one do you use to tune? In a French horn, we used to pull some out to like if we were too sharp or whatever.
Well, the tuning, this is the main tuning slide here,
Okay.
because that applies to all valves.
Okay.
And then beyond that, you can tune the individual valves. If they're and actually this horn is not played and tuned very well, but then.
Please show, play one bell and then play the other so we can hear the difference in the sound.
I did, but I'll try it again. Thank you.
I've come with two instruments today, actually three, but two are the same. This is called a concert zither. And it would be played flat on the table. I cannot play it, it is horribly out of tune. It was my husband's, it was up in the attic, I had never seen it until after he died and I cleaned up the attic. But in order to play the concert zither, it would be this way. Thumb pick, and you pick these 5 fretted strings, you fret with your left hand, pick here, and then with the other fingers, you'd strum these strings, which are very out of tune. I'm not sure at all how anyone can stretch from here to there, but it is a difficult instrument to play. This one is called a concert zither. This one is also a concert zither, but it's much smaller. This one has 38 strings, this has 25, plus the 5 and plus the 5. This one belongs to Renata Belleville. I told her I would like to show it alongside the other one so you can see the difference. You can also get a simple zither that does not have the 5 fretted strings, but you can play melody and chords on it somehow, I don't know how. It really looks more like an auto harp, but an auto harp more or less plays chords, and with the zither you can also play melody. But this instrument, this one has nothing no tag in it. I don't know where it came from. This one has a tag inside there. It was manufactured in Washington, Missouri by the Franz Schwarzer Company. The Schwarzer Company went out of business right after World War I, so this instrument is at least 100 years old. I don't know beyond that. The zithers themselves can be traced back to about 1700 BC in Egypt, and they have, of course, evolved as they came around. This one, like I said, was made in the United States, but they're more of a European instrument. It is the national instrument of Bavaria. And
How do you hold it to play?
it is on a table. You sit it on a table. As a matter of fact, I took them off. It has feet. You can see these 3 little feet. They're not just little circles. They have spikes in them. They're quite sharp. So it won't slide on the table. But since I hung mine on the wall, I didn't want those spikes going into the wall, so I took them off. I still have them. You can see the holes, 1, 2, 3, where they go. If you want to know, I didn't do what Cynthia did. I did not record anything. But if you want to know what it sounds like, go on YouTube and look up The Third Man, the movie The Third Man, as if there was played in that. But here again, it's a very difficult instrument to do because you have to coordinate these fingers fretting, this thumb plucking, and these fingers playing here. So you can play melody and harmony together. But it's not easy, and I have no intention to even try. It's not in tune because I would need to have a guide. I would have to know which note each of these strings was supposed to be tuned to, and I don't know that. I don't have that guide. So we're not going to do that. I do know that there's a Vienna tuning for these 5 strings or a Munich tuning for these 5 strings. One of them would be A, A, D, G, C. The other one would be A, D, G, C, C. Just a matter of 2 A's or 2 C's. That was in an article I did read. Now, the other instrument I brought is called a bowed psaltery. And this is a much newer instrument. I think it probably started being built about the beginning of the 1900s. And you can see it has a series of springs, tuning pegs down here. It has been called a cross between a violin and a piano. I'll show you why later, but each string is one note, as it would be in a piano. This side of the psaltery would be corresponding to the white keys. This side, you can see there's 3, 2, 3, 2, corresponds to the black keys. These are the sharps and the flats over here. Now, the part from the violin is that you hold it like this, and you play it with the bow. So, I have picked this up maybe 5 or 6 times to learn how to play it, and it lasts for 2 or 3 weeks, and then I quit and go back to the dulcimer. But it is much, much easier than a zither. Sorry. Another thing about this instrument, those of you who play the dulcimer would recognize this book. I can actually play songs in this book on the zither, on the psaltery. Not well, because I'm not really versed yet where the different strings are, but let me play one more for you. It's going to be short. And this one has a sharp in it, or a flat in it, whatever. So I have to use both sides. So.
Okay, thank you. Well, you have seen all the old instruments with strings. This one is one of the very modern ones. It's an electronic harp. And it has 12 different instruments it can imitate, from the piano to organ to banjo and strings. And it also has another section of rhythms. And the rhythms go from rock to march to jazz to waltz. You can have any of those rhythms. And it also has a demo. I wish I knew how to play this exactly the way the demos go, but I can't. But I promised Mary over in skilled nursing that I would say hi. Hi, Mary. And here's a song for Mary. Well, you get an idea of how good it could sound, if anybody knows. And the other thing I brought today is the didgeridoo. And if, Cynthia, would you hold the, wait a minute. How about somebody that blew it?
Oh, you want to?
Yeah, just,
Tell them about this.
okay. Give them a note, would you please?
Okay. This is actually a limb from a tree.
Oh, I'll give them the background.
So,
I'll give them the
it's
background.
very hard wood. This is wax that someone has put at this end. It's quite heavy wood. I don't know if you can really tell, but it's hollowed out somehow, however they did it. And if you look through it, you can see daylight at the other end. It's intended in Australia for long
Yeah.
distance.
I'll tell them the rest of the story.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So, I don't think that it's. I can't do it. But it reminds me of elephant
Okay.
sounds, you know, which are very low. Elephant sounds are very low like this one and probably travel a very long distance.
Yeah, you can just show them if you want to take it through the area. And, yeah.
Other people want to hold this?
And, oh, I don't care if they wanna, see it. The Aborigines go through the woods and hit trees. The eucalyptus tree is what it's made from. And if it sounds hollow, they'll cut it down. And if it's not all the way hollow, they heat a metal piece and burn the inside out. And they take all the bark off, put a varnish and paint, decorate it. And I just found out today, I went back to read something about the Aborigines and the didgeridoo, and they said I was culturally disrespectful to the Aborigines because women are not to touch that didgeridoo. It was only for men. And if women touched it, they would become infertile. But I was thinking, I wouldn't trust that, would you? But they really do use that to send messages back and forth. And like the horn instrument there, that's thousands of years old. That's what they communicated with. And I have to tell you, the very first time I heard that was out on the street, and it's one long sound. You blow your cheeks out, okay? And when the cheeks are going down to continue that sound, you breathe in. I tried for months and could not do it. Just try it sometime. That's the way they get by having one continual note. And I walked into the store that sells these didgeridoos, and I picked it up, and I went, wow, that man said, isn't that amazing? You're only 1 in 100 that can play that thing. Well, now I thought, I'm playing it. I have this instrument. So I bought it. But when we got back here, at Woodland Pond of all places, I probably got that 40 years ago when I traveled in Australia. Well, they had lessons for didgeridoos right out here on 299. So out I go and I show him how I can play it, and he laughed like an, that's not the way you play it. You have to play it like a trumpet. Exactly what he did. And so I was kind of disappointed that I couldn't play it, but I enjoy having the instrument anyhow. It's so unusual. And I think that was made from a limb of the eucalyptus because it has a slight bend to it. But they, you know, they do a lot of decorating on it and things. Anyhow, that's our story. If anybody would like to try, I have some alcohol swabs you can wipe the end and be perfectly safe to try it, to blow it. So I think that's it.
Folk song about play my didgeridoo. I never knew what it was.
I was on a dive boat and they had the one guy got on, he was making work people on it, and he was playing the didgeridoo. It was fun.
Well, it's, you know, amazing skill, because I tried and tried. I still can't blow out and breathe in at the same time. You know, let the air out of my cheeks while I inhale. Doesn't work for me.
If you'd like to come up and look at the instruments, please do.
How many of us remember that we had a didgeridoo here at one of the popular concerts?
Yeah.
And a flute player,
Yes.
or a recorder player, and the didgeridoo player and the recorder player played together spontaneously, and it was beautiful. But the man who had the didgeridoo, it was much bigger than that one. It was a really long.
Yeah.
Okay, the longer they are, the lower the note.
That was low.
Yeah.
But it was wonderful. That was the first time I had ever seen a didgeridoo.
Yeah, if anybody'd like to come and look at the instruments, please feel free. If you'd like to try a bow psaltery, by all means. I have a bow, I have the psaltery. So I think that's the end of our program. Thank you.